Hardening off, a practice used by growers to ensure a successful transplant and a fruitful life. Here we will set forth to define the term, determine its key factors, and finish with today's best practices. Now, like never seen before, on this edition of Horticultural Lexicon. Here is a definition provided by the Royal Horticultural Society. I don't believe it is all-encompassing, yet, to the uninitiated, it does a great job of covering a highly involved biological process. And I quote, "Plants raised indoors or in a greenhouse need to be acclimatized to cooler temperatures, lower humidity, and increased air movement for about 2 to 3 weeks before they are planted outdoors. This toughening up," there goes a motorcycle. "This toughening up process is known as hardening off." Okay, so here we have an image of that indoor or greenhouse environment. For the vast majority of us, this is where our seedlings begin. Starting plants in your home, if you're a gardener, is very similar as well. Temperatures are warm and relatively consistent with low air movement. The largest difference being that humidity is generally higher in a greenhouse than in your living quarters. These conditions are great to induce high germination rates along with consistent growth. Yet it creates weak plants without the fortitude to survive in an outdoor environment. The 4 factors of a successful hardening off process are listed here, and in the following slides we will cover them in great detail. Temperature is the largest factor of this process, in which hot temperatures can be just as lethal to seedlings as cold ones. First, I will cover the importance of acclimatizing plants to cooler temperatures, as the Royal Horticultural Society stressed this in their definition. The chart on the right, labeled Classification of Vegetable Crops According to Their Adaptation to Field Temperatures, may be wordy, but it very concisely places vegetables according to an important biological truth. Some plants, such as the hardy ones, can endure the cold, and temperatures below freezing will not kill them. Kale, listed as a hardy crop, can withstand temperatures down to 10 degrees Fahrenheit. To the right, the half-hardy list contains plants which will likely survive a frost, with temps even down into the low 20s being manageable for short periods of time. Then, the bottom of the list contains crops which should never see cold temps, especially the very tender list. The chart on the left shows the base temperature of specific crops, the base temperature being the minimum temperature for growth. As you can see, although lettuce will survive temps down into the 20s, it requires a minimum temperature of 40 degrees Fahrenheit to grow. By understanding these charts, you can plan your hardening off period with some data behind it. Warm season crops should never be exposed to temps below the mid-40s or low 50s. While cool season crops can endure these temperatures, they likely will not grow, but will begin to harden off. That covers the transition to cool temps, yet transplanting into hot temperatures can be just as dangerous. Even during the spring, at 12 noon to 2 p.m., with the sun high in the sky, the temperatures can get very warm, and a plant exposed to this heat, along with direct contact with the sun for the first time, can induce wilting and death. Be just as wary of frost injuries as heat stroke, and closely monitor plants for the first few times they are exposed to the harsh realities of the earth. Humidity is next on my list, and I believe that this vapor pressure deficit chart does a fantastic job of summing up the information that we are looking for. The Grow Guide legend at bottom right has a golden star next to the blue highlighted low transpiration row, and this is a very comfortable range for plugs adjusting to the outside world. On the chart itself, you can see the large chunk of blue area with temps ranging from 50 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit, also known as 10 to 18 degrees Celsius for my friends of science. along with relative humidity percentages ranging from 67.5 to 22.5%. What you should take from this information is that newly hardening plants will have a more favorable transition in higher temperatures when buffered with a higher humidity, while plants in cooler temperatures can endure drier humidities. Basically, higher temps put a stress on a plant which the humidity will lessen, while low humidity itself can be a stress, yet the lower temps lessen the blow. Airflow and wind, an often unmeasured actor, which can be a friend or foe. Generally in the greenhouse environment, airflow is very poor, which can lead to fungal issues. You will see in the picture above that there are several ceiling fans in the Gothic-style tunnel. These fans cannot create the airflow comparable to wind experienced by plants in the picture below. Wind acts upon temperature and humidity in dangerous ways. In cool temperatures, we are familiar with wind chill, which can cause frost sensitivity. While in warm temperatures, the wind can pull humidity away from plants, leading to a loss in turgor pressure. While outdoor temperatures or humidities may seem in range, the wind can have drastic effects. The last factor, before we cover the ways horticulturalists combat these pressures, is time. How long does a plant need to be exposed to increasingly long hardships before it can stand on its own root hairs? Well, I hate to say it, as I am trying to make the biological process of growing cut and dry in a failing attempt of making this information usable to people looking for hard answers. But the time is highly subjective. One of the first factors of time is the type of crop. Here, the crop's relative hardiness is of great importance, and the chart from the temperature realities slide is sure to help you. Another factor has to do with how different the outside environment is from the germination environment. For instance, if you germinated in a closed windowsill, the plants have never endured wind or vast humidity changes, but have likely seen some temperature variation. Or if you germinated in a cheap plastic do-it-yourself outside contraption, perhaps the environment was just moderately improved upon the outdoor temps and humidity, yet probably was still much less airflow. Or you may have grown in a full-scale greenhouse in which the environment may be drastically different. Based upon this highly subjective information, you can work on a timeline for inducing hardiness. I would venture out to say that a 1-week span of hardening off for small changes in environmentals would suffice, and that a 2-week span would be in order for more drastic climatic differences, in which each day should increase the plant to additional pressures. For an hour the first day, then 2 hours the next, then 2 hours before and after noon for a total of 4 hours, then 6 total hours, and so on, until the plant can survive both overnight cool temperatures along with midday heat. But be wary with that initial effort of setting a plant out, and have the hose or a watering can ready to quickly reduce stress. We made it. And now that we have covered the definition of hardening off and its major factors, we can use this information to become better growers. Here we will cover some of the best practices for the horticulturalist. First, let's look at the images surrounding our screen. These are all fantastic representations of structures to aid in a successful hardening off process. We have representations of do-it-yourself projects along with aesthetically pleasing planting boxes and a shade structure used for a small commercial operation. In fact, the image located at the bottom center has 2 structures. The clear hoop house one in the background being for germination and very tight environmental controls, and the shade cloth greenhouse in the foreground being for the beginning of the hardening off process. Now to the text. These are the general rules of hardening off in a chronological order. Water plants before being set out. And their initial placement should be somewhere with very little airflow. Next, monitor them regularly. Don't place your plants out the first time and forget about them, or you can easily lose weeks, if not months, worth of work. If signs of wilting emerge, take action. The plants can be saved. Water them and their leaves, which is where they need it the most to cool down. Place them in a shady spot and put them back into relative safety once they have bounced back and look perky again. Each day expose them to greater hardships, whether it be additional time, heat, or lower humidity. In 1 or 2 weeks, based upon how extreme your local climate is, the plants will be prepared for the harsh conditions of planet Earth. And please, watch my video on transplanting before setting them out. Save yourself some heartache. I really hope you enjoyed the first episode of Horticultural Lexicon. You are welcome to come back for more.